After finishing with the Rhoynar, the Valyrians conquered the western coast, defeating the remaining Andals to establish many of the settlements that came to be known as the Free Cities, such as Pentos, Myr, Tyrosh, Lys, Qohor, and Norvos. A notable exception was Braavos, founded in secret by runaway slaves fleeing their Valyrian masters. Over 100 years later, they revealed themselves to the world. In 326 BC, the Valyrians once again pushed west, this time with the annexation of a small island in the Narrow Sea, coming into the possession of the Valyrian noble house Targaryen, who named it Dragonstone, meant as the westernmost territory to provide a port for trade with the west. In the final centuries before the conquest of Westeros, the Storm Kings began an expansion of their holdings by invading the Riverlands, while the Ironborn slowly lost the empire they had built. Yet after years of decline, House Hoare of the Black-Blooded Kings took power on the islands, and sent their armies to the Riverlands, taking it from the Storm Kings, remaining in power until Aegon's conquest. The various territories of Westeros were now formed into 7 kingdoms, with the Kingdom of the North, Kingdom of the Isles and Rivers, Kingdom of the Mountain and Vale, Kingdom of the Rock, Kingdom of the Reach, Kingdom of the Storm, and Dorne. In the Valyrian freehold, Daenys the Dreamer, a lady of House Targaryen, saw a vision foreseeing the destruction of Valyria in 126 BC, convincing her family to leave the city. House Velaryon and Celtigar joined them and made their home on Dragonstone and the nearby islands, taking with them 5 living dragons, including Balerion the Black Dread. 12 years later, in 114 BC, the doom of Valyria shattered the Valyrian Peninsula, with many believing the destruction was caused by the eruption of the 14 Fires, the chain of volcanoes where the Valyrians first found dragons and bonded with them. After the loss of their homeland, Aurion, one of the few surviving dragon lords, declared himself first emperor of Valyria and raised an army of 30,000 soldiers in Qohor, leading them south with the aim of retaking the peninsula. Yet neither he, his dragon, nor his army were ever heard from again. On Dragonstone, thanks to the vision of Daenys the Dreamer, House Targaryen avoided the fate of their people and were now in possession of some of the last living dragons in the known world. After the fall of the Valyrian freehold, Essos became embroiled in 100 years of war between rival factions vying for power. This time became known as the Bleeding Years, or Century of Blood, most associated with the rise of the nomadic Dothraki horse lords, who rampaged across the continent, burning cities and forming what became known as the Dothraki Sea by conquering the kingdoms of Sarnor, the Ibbenese settlements in Ifik-Hebron, and many of the Kathi city-states of the Red Waste. At the Battle of Qohor, also known as the Battle of the 3000, the city-state of Qohor defended against a Dothraki horde of 25,000, and while their defeat seemed all but assured, the Qohori used an army of 3,000 unsullied warriors, famed slave soldiers castrated at a young age, and trained their whole lives for battle. Although only 600 Unsullied survived the fighting, they killed over 12,000 Dothraki, causing them to retreat and halting their western migration. After years spent preparing, the Dragon Lord Aegon the Conqueror, along with his sister wives Rhaenyra and Visenya, rode their dragons west, and with an army of only 1,600, began their invasion of Westeros. One by one, the kingdoms that ruled the continent fell to the Targaryens, and while they often fought with a disadvantage in numbers, their dragons rampaged across the land until the last remaining rulers either bent the knee or died resisting. Under the Targaryens, House Baratheon became lords of the Stormlands, the Starks lords of the North, the Tullys lords of the Riverlands, the Greyjoys lords of the Iron Islands, the Tyrells lords of the Reach, the Lannisters lords of the Westerlands, and the Arryns lords of the Vale. Only Dorne was able to avoid conquest, warning the Targaryens that they would never yield. With nearly all of the continent conquered, Aegon Targaryen was crowned King of Westeros and Protector of the Realm, marking year 1 of Aegon's conquest. The new monarch then created the position Hand of the King, appointing his closest friend and possible half-brother Orys Baratheon to the position. A few years later, Aegon once again invaded Dorne in the First Dornish War, attempting to unite the continent under his rule. In 10 AC, Rhaenys, Queen of Westeros and wife of Aegon I, was believed to have died in battle with the Dornish. The war then continued on for 3 more years until King Aegon received a mysterious letter from Prince Nymor Martell, ruler of Dorne. And while the contents of the letter remain unknown, some have theorized that perhaps it stated Rhaenys was still alive, having been captured captured and kept as a prisoner under torture. The letter may then have offered to end her suffering in exchange for a cessation of hostilities, and so Aegon immediately withdrew his troops from Dorne, ending the war. In 37 AC, Aegon the Conqueror, first king of Westeros, died of natural causes. After his death, his eldest son, Aenys, inherited the throne. During the reign of Aenys I, House Targaryen would continue the Valyrian tradition of incest, marrying his eldest daughter Rhaena to his eldest son Aegon. However, this came into conflict with the moral teachings of the Faith of the Seven, and so many rebelled against the Targaryens. For years, the Faith militants organized their forces and waged war against the crown. King Aenys, in turn, proved poorly suited to rule, incapable of stopping the bloodshed, and dying of illness on Dragonstone only a year after the conflict started. After the death of King Aenys, the elderly Queen Visenya, widow of Aegon the Conqueror, flew to Pentos and brought back her son and Aenys' half-brother, Maegor Targaryen. Queen Visenya then took Aenys' children hostage, proclaiming Maegor king and issuing an open challenge to any who disputed the claim. This challenge was accepted by Sir Daemon Morrigan, called the Devout, and they fought each other in a trial of 7, with Maegor emerging victorious. King Maegor spent the years of his reign battling the Faith militants and earning a reputation for cruelty. In 44 AC, Queen Visenya Targaryen, mother of King Maegor, wife of Aegon I, died of natural causes. In 45 AC, he completed construction of the Red Keep and Maegor's Holdfast, creating a vast labyrinth of hidden passages and ensuring their secrecy by killing the many craftsmen and laborers who worked on the project. He also went to war with Prince Aegon and later Prince Jaehaerys, the sons of Aenys, who continued to dispute his claim to the throne. Maegor struggled without the guidance of his mother, and in 48 AC was abandoned by his wife and several of his Kingsguard. King Maegor I died sitting on the Iron Throne, many believing he slit his wrists in the night. With Maegor dead, rule fell to his nephew Jaehaerys. King Jaehaerys I went on to declare a truce, ending the war with the Faith militants by granting their members amnesty in return for their submission to Targaryen rule. He became known as the Conciliator and had a long and prosperous reign, with many believing he was the greatest king Westeros ever knew. After the death of his son and heir, King Jaehaerys called a great council to decide on the issue of inheritance. The First Great Council of 101 AC chose to honor a male heir in Prince Viserys, son of the king's third-born, over Princess Rhaenys, daughter of the king's second-born, leaving a precedent for future generations that the Iron Throne could not pass to a woman if a male heir existed within the family. 2 years later, King Jaehaerys died of natural causes. King Viserys I then came to power and was considered a good ruler, keeping Westeros prosperous and peaceful. He had 3 children, but his 2 sons died young, leaving only Princess Rhaenyra as a possible heir. Despite the precedent of the Great Council, Viserys embraced the idea of a female heir in order to avoid having his brother, the rogue Prince Daemon Targaryen, take the throne. The kingdom united behind this arrangement, and in 105 AC, hundreds of lords and knights swore oaths to defend Princess Rhaenyra's right to the throne. After the death of his first wife, Viserys married Lady Alicent Hightower. The king and queen produced many sons, but Viserys insisted on keeping his eldest daughter Rhaenyra as heir. Queen Alicent, determined to see her firstborn son Aegon crowned as king, then headed a faction that came to be known as the Greens, while Princess Rhaenyra led the Blacks. Viserys often attempted to bring peace between them, but to no avail. In 129 AC, King Viserys died of natural causes, and Queen Alicent, along with her Kingsguard Sir Criston Cole, immediately set to usurping the throne. She proclaimed her eldest son Aegon King of Westeros, second of his name and legitimate heir to Viserys. Legally, she would cite the Great Council of 101 AC, where it was decided females could not inherit the throne and could not pass it down through their line. Therefore, the crown must go to the eldest son by the king. On Dragonstone, a pregnant Rhaenyra was enraged at the betrayal of the queen and was so upset she went into early labor, losing the child. Once she recovered, she raised her armies and waged war against the queen and Aegon II. Known as the Dance of the Dragons, this was the first major civil war of the Seven Kingdoms, and saw the continent split in support of the Blacks and Greens. While many kept the oaths taken in 105 AC to Rhaenyra, others did not, and stayed neutral or supported Aegon. After years of fighting, the war ended disastrously for House Targaryen, with both contenders for the throne dead, along with a great majority of their dragons and dragon riders. outsiders. In 131 AC, the Old Man of the North, Cregan Stark, Lord of Winterfell, came south with a mighty army in support of Rhaenyra Targaryen. Even after her death, they continued to King's Landing, eager to take revenge. But before they arrived, Aegon II was poisoned, and with no more male heirs on his side of the family, Rhaenyra's son, Aegon III, was crowned king. Lord Stark was enraged that the war ended before his army could crush the rebel forces, and so he had young Aegon name him Hand of the King, an office he held for a single day, in which he arrested all those suspected of poisoning the king, and passed judgment on them, sending some to the wall and others to their graves, after which he resigned his position and returned to the north. Although Queen Alicent survived the war, she was arrested shortly after and died in the prisons of King's Landing in 133 AC of winter fever. Following the Dance of the Dragons, King Aegon III sat the Iron Throne and attempted to rebuild the kingdom. Though his reign was largely peaceful, he was unable to breed healthy dragons, and with so many lost in the war, the race went extinct under his rule, thus earning him the name Dragonbane. In 157 AC, King Aegon III died of natural causes. A special thanks to all those who contribute to Civilization X, like Zach of All Trades Trials, Magic the Shaman, and Rhoynar the Dead Raven. If you would like to help Civilization X, click on the Patreon link, and please be sure to like and subscribe, and click on the links to see more.